Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. Now, with the trade deadline being today, it's going to be stop and go based on what we talk about, what we report, what we actually get into, especially on podcasts when you have to have the editing process before you get something up and the news could be outdated by then. So I'm just going to stick to what happened last night. And I want to talk about Mikael Granlund, newest member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, has his Penguins debut against the Tampa Bay Lightning in a 5-4 overtime victory against the three-time defending Eastern Conference champions. And I'll say it, he impressed me in his debut. I thought he was a good player, a positive player in the Pittsburgh Penguins' bottom six, and certainly on the Pittsburgh Penguins penalty kill, they got plenty of action last night. If you don't remember, he was acquired on Wednesday in exchange for a 2023 second-round pick. He does have 2 more years left on his contract after this one at $5 million, which honestly is the worst part of that entire situation, is that he has a very large contract for several years down the road, and he is over the age of 30, which is the proverbial Mendoza line in the National Hockey League for most players. Obviously, players like Crosby, Malkin, Letang have spit in the face of that, but most players start to decline after the age of 30. Regardless, Granlund came to the Pittsburgh Penguins the following day after playing them on Tuesday and now playing for them on Thursday. Took a nice little car ride from Sunrise, Florida to the western side of the state of Florida over to Tampa Bay to get to the Pittsburgh Penguins at 1 a.m. on game day. I thought he played pretty well. 16 minutes and 16 seconds of ice time, no shots on goal, but he had a hit, and he led all forwards in shorthanded ice time at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So when I watched him play, it seemed like he was, in his first game at least, exactly as advertised. Whenever he was traded to the Penguins, a lot of people said, listen, he's not really much of a goal scorer anymore. He's more of a facilitator, and you can tell that by his stat line. He doesn't have a lot of goals. I believe it's 9 on the season. But he does have over 25 assists on the year. He played on an elevated role with the Nashville Predators, playing on the first line at times with Philip Forsberg, playing with other guys higher in their lineup. So moving down in the lineup, we don't expect much goal scoring from Mikael Granlund, and he proved that yesterday. No shots on goal when on the ice, but if you watched his limited ice time at 5-on-5 with Jeff Carter and Danton Heinen, because that's where he was deployed, that line looked like it had some jump to it, right? And that's all you can hope for if you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, because the third line has been so far away from being anything positive for the Penguins over the past couple of months that seeing a little bit of jump was a breath of fresh air. Now, I understand, for a team that has aspirations of making the playoffs and making some noise in the playoffs, as every Sidney Crosby team should, that isn't really a high bar to pass, and that shouldn't be the bar. But considering what we've seen, every single improvement is something that needs to be built up throughout the remainder of this season. The Penguins sit in a pretty good spot. Winners of 4 straight, they're now in the number 1 wild card spot in the NHL's Eastern Conference, and they have a 5-point advantage on the Buffalo Sabres for that first spot out. Sabres are the only team with a game in hand, and that is 1 game in hand, not enough to catch the Penguins if they sit idly by. So they're playing better hockey. Granlund, I thought, looked pretty good last night. I'll say what I said yesterday on the show. His speed is something that a lot of people were worried about. You know, when you talk about the Penguins, a lot of people say old and slow. He is older at 31. I wouldn't classify him as slow. I think he's not a burner by any means of the word. He's not going to be Kasperi Kapanen, who's just going to blow by defenders, but he is smaller, he is quick, and he's shifty. You saw that in the offensive zone. He is smaller, so if a defenseman catches him in the right spot, he's going to separate him from the puck fairly easily, but at the same time, he's not easy to catch. Almost like Jake Gensel in a way that he tries to avoid being hit, of course, unless he's standing in front of the net on the power play where he just gets hammered. And also similar to like a Connor Sherry. You know, when Sherry was with the Penguins, he didn't really get hit all that much. A guy his size, you would expect, okay, he's going to get hit. He might get injured because he's a little bit smaller. He carries the puck a lot, and he's just, if he gets caught, he's going to get caught. But he doesn't do that very often. So Granlund, it rubs me the same way. But again, we saw him for 16 minutes of ice time with the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's not a sample size, but it's a good start, in my opinion. The other thing I noticed, he has really good handles, and he's a fantastic passer. Like I said, as advertised, he is a facilitator, and he did that on several occasions last night, mainly to Danton Heinen. It seems like they have a really good rapport already. It must be something about being blonde and being a hockey player, but those two together created a couple scoring opportunities. And while Granlund was not the beneficiary as far as shots on goal, scoring opportunities himself, he created some for Heinen. He created, I believe, one or two for Jeff Carter as well. And I thought that line overall was a positive for the Pittsburgh Penguins when on the ice. We mentioned it, 60% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5, 82% of the expected goal share, which is a good number. Regardless of what else happens on the ice, if you have 82% of the expected goals, you're a positive influence on the team in that game. Now, the big thing is, they only played 7 minutes of 36 seconds of ice time at 5-on-5 because last night was a penalty fest. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins, 2 seconds apart, took 2 delay of game penalties, right? There were calls left and right, and that's what you're going to get when you have two teams that try to play with pace, that try to play a little bit of a faster game, despite the Penguins not really having the horses to be able to play a fast game alongside the Tampa Bay Lightning. But they controlled it. They controlled the pace of play, they controlled puck possession, and they controlled the game. And a big part of that was the fact that they were able to roll all 4 lines. I mean, the 4th line looked good too. Drew O'Connor with one of the best goals I've seen on an individual effort from the bottom 6 practically all season. But it was nice to see the Penguins be able to execute more of a Mike Sullivan system that we knew earlier in his tenure. Roll the 4 lines, doesn't matter who's out there, we can take you on, and we can win those battles when they're out on the ice. I thought it was a phenomenal game up and down the lineup by everybody out there. The one noticeable negative play by Granlund, and again, nitpicking here, the Steven Stamkos goal at 5-on-3, Granlund was kind of left in no man's land, and you have to make a decision at that point. It looked like he was trying to find out where somebody was to take away a passing lane. There wasn't really anybody in position to receive a pass from Stamkos, so he let Stammer walk right in, snipe Tristan Jarry. You do at the same time hope that your goaltender is able to make that save because it's one-on-one from outside of the face-off dot, but Steven Stamkos, he's just a freak of nature. Like, that's going to happen. And like I said, that is the only bad play that Mikael Granlund has made, and when you're at a 5-on-3, how much do you really blame the penalty killers, right? If you're at a 5-on-3 for almost 2 full minutes, I'm not sure anything that happens on that you can really blame on the penalty killer unless it's blatant. Like I said, he's the guy that it made look bad because he looked hesitant because he was out there on an island with Steven Stamkos and he was a little too far away to get to him in time. It is what it is. It was one play that I would say is negative, but at the same time, I don't hold it against him that much. So if that's it, if that's what he performs the next 20 plus games and then hopefully carries it over through the next 2 seasons because that's how long the Penguins have him under contract for, then he's a perfectly fine addition. Now, like we said yesterday on Tip of the Ice-Burgh, don't hold the trade against the player, right? He signed the contract that was put in front of him from Nashville. I'm sure everybody out there will do the same thing if somebody said, we're going to give you $5 million a year. Yep, okay. I'll take it. You can't begrudge the player for taking that deal in Nashville, and you can't begrudge the player because he didn't choose to get traded to Pittsburgh. He's not aware of the Penguins' cap situation. He wasn't like, well, I don't know if my cap really is going to help them that much. It's not up to him. Obviously, everybody's mad at Ron Hextall. That's where it should be. He acquired Nick Bonino today. I will talk about that on another special episode that will be coming out later today. But don't hold it against Granlund, specifically whenever he goes out there and he puts together a good performance. Like I said, penalty kill needed to be good last night. It was good last night. And he led all forwards in penalty kill ice time. Almost 4 minutes of ice time on the man disadvantage. Pretty good start for the man from Finland. Other notes from last night, because it was a very interesting game. Important win for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Chris Letang, another rough night. He's having a really tough season. A lot of people were worried, hopefully it's not a broken jaw. Hopefully it's not something that keeps him out, especially after losing out on Jacob Chychrun. If you would lose Chris Letang for an extended period of time, that would be a death blow at this point in the season. But luckily, after missing over a period, he was able to return from, honestly, how much bad luck can you get in one sequence? Gets hit in the finger, busts his finger open, which is already uncomfortable enough as a defenseman, especially I believe that was his right hand. So that's the hand he uses to brace against the boards. That's the hand that he uses that moves mostly on the stick. It doesn't stay stable, so likely you're going to agitate that throughout the game. Already bad enough. 2 seconds later, gets hit right in the mouth. Like, how unlucky can you be? And not only does it hit him in the mouth, not only does it bust his lip open, I believe he said 27 stitches after the game is what he had to get in between periods there in that stint when he was missing time. But then the puck goes right into the net, and you're down 1-0 against a really good Tampa Bay Lightning team on the road. And by the way, Andrei Vasilevsky early in that game looked like a stone wall. So in that situation, you just feel for Chris Letang. Thankfully, able to come back. Thankfully, played pretty well as soon as he came back, and hopefully he's resting up today before going on and taking on the Florida Panthers on Saturday. Just can't believe that his season continues to just have these little incidents. Obviously, some big incidents as well that we don't wish upon our worst enemy. But everything just seems to be compiling for Chris Letang. Drew O'Connor proved his worth. I don't know who else the Penguins are going to go out and get today. Like I said, I'm recording this at 8 a.m. on Friday with a couple of hours left until the trade deadline. They do have Nick Bonino at this point. I don't know where he would fit in the lineup. I would assume fourth line center. And I would assume, as of right now, based on the play, Drew O'Connor continues to stay in the lineup. He certainly deserves so, right? The way he's played the last couple of games, he deserves to stay in the lineup. Last night proved it once again. A beautiful goal in the third period, in a pivotal moment, too, with 13 minutes remaining in a tie game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Has a beautiful goal to put the Pittsburgh Penguins up 4-3, shows off his strength, and then pokes it past Vasi with an absolutely gorgeous strength goal that, like I said, one of the best goals I've seen from the Pittsburgh Penguins bottom six. So shout out to Drew O'Connor. I hope he continues to get the opportunity to prove his worth at the NHL level, because I feel like he's earned that shot to stay in the lineup at full strength. And the defense. Last thing I want to say is about them, because they're holding the shots to a minimum, something that has been a big issue all season long, right? They've been allowing 34-plus shots a game. There's been copious amounts of times where we've seen opponents get up towards 40 shots, a couple times towards 50 shots. You can't allow that, right? Especially with a goaltender in Tristan Jarry, as we learned on Wednesday, according to Rob Rossi of The Athletic when he joined the tip of the Ice-Burgh. That's a hip injury. You're never really going to be fully right from a hip injury for a long time. It's going to take some time, which is why you've seen multiple different injuries from Tristan Jarry. Casey DeSmith was overworked in the middle of this season. So when you have goaltenders that are fighting it in that way, you need to insulate them a little bit better. They've started to do that the last 4 games. Now, my barometer has always been 30 shots on goal. Keep them under. I'll consider it a fairly successful game. Allow them to go over. I have to start to speculate a little bit more about your play, right? That's my easy barometer, right? Last night, 31 shots on goal allowed by the Pittsburgh Penguins defense. But they also went into overtime and also had 5 power play opportunities given up to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have one of the best power plays, as my cats play with a bird in the background, a bird toy, had one of the best power plays and most active power plays, which means they shoot the puck a lot in the league. 5 opportunities, and you still hold them to only 31 shots on goal. And the previous 3 games, the Penguins had held opponents to under 30 shots. It's one of the reasons they've won 4 straight games. So shout out to the defense holding the other teams kind of in check the last 4 games. It's really been a massive reason as to why the Pittsburgh Penguins have won 4 straight and have fixed their standing in the Eastern Conference over the last 6 to 7 days. But that's going to do it for this episode of Penguins to Go. Like I said, another mini episode is going to come up on the feed about Nick Bonino coming to the Penguins, just waiting to hear what the return was for that trade before we record. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. I listen to Spotify personally, no free ads, but you can listen on Apple Podcasts. You can listen on Stitcher, Google Play, whatever you like to listen to podcasts on. You can find us. Tip of the Ice-Burgh, and then, of course, scroll down to see Penguins to Go. But that's going to do it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.